So I recently took a little bit of a break from Eternal Return. After Emma's release, I was just so burnt out of the game. I'd played Emma for almost 24 hours on that day, and all the little things started to really add up and get to me. So I came back, and I said, let me take a look at how my favorite character, Emma, is doing. And she's considered one of the worst characters in the game. And this upset me. So I went ahead and I deleted every single build I made for Emma on day one. And I said, okay, let's just start from scratch. Let's make something I think is good and see if we can path it. And I made something that looks fantastic, but the pathing I couldn't really make work. So I changed it a little bit. It's a Dragon Dawok now. So I went into this game with this build and I destroyed everybody. Of course, I tried this out for more than one game. Sometimes you get shafted because that's just how Eternal Return is. Sometimes you just get shafted. But for the majority of the time, when I was able to get some items, I just wrecked people. Even in the early game, I would have 3 greens, a blue and a green or something like that. Still would wreck people. So I'm pondering. I'm like, what are people doing wrong? And I took a look at the recommended skill max order. No. I think that people need to be shown the right way to play Emma. This is the way I think that Emma should be played. Now, why is that? Okay, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at her Q and W. Now, if you take a quick look at the stats, don't worry about the essay that is the Q. I will break it down. Let's take a look at the flat stats. Now, obviously, W looks a lot better, doesn't it? But, no. Something you have to consider is that your Q hits twice. So those base stats, times 2. So breaking down what the essay that is the Q says. First, when you press Q, it leaves a bird. If you press Q again after that, the bird will also fire another Q. And if both cards hit, the enemy is slowed by 30%. So the thing you have to remember that is the difference between these abilities is that with the Q, if a card hits, the cooldown of that ability is reduced by 1 second. The cooldown of the Q is already 5.5 seconds. The W at max rank has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Of course, if you hit an enemy with it, it's reduced by 3, so it's down to 5. The thing is, the W is your main escape tool. If your W just happens to be on cooldown when a fight is going sour and you can't kite anymore, you lose. Whereas, if your Q, I can mash that button all I want. No repercussion. Damage is near equivalent, assuming you're able to hit both cards, which I think is absolutely necessary to play Emma, is you need to learn how to hit both Q cards. So the reason I want to max the passive as my second max, we need to talk about the passive itself. So the passive gives bonus damage on her next auto attack based on the percentage of mana she has. So that's not what I'm worried about. I don't care about that, if I gotta be honest. It only goes up to 3 to 4%. The main thing is that you get a 3, 6, and 9% shield based on how much mana she has. Based on 9% of the total mana she has. Now, 3% doesn't sound like a lot. And it's not. But 9%, that's a chunky shield right there. Hold on. So we're talking now. Hold up. A 9% shield. Well, that's pretty close to 10%. So the math is kind of easy. It's just a little bit less than 10%. So if we bring up the average Emma SP towards the end of a game, she has about 1400 SP. That's about 140 damage shield. when you consider that most items, the Royal Crown gives a bonus of 300 HP. That's half of a crown. Now, it doesn't sound too impressive, but you realize that you get this every 10 seconds. Now, the Q provides the Dove, which is also a sphere of influence and a big threat that Emma players need to be aware of where the Dove is at all times. And I think that's where the difficulty of this character comes in, is because you have to remember the location of your hat, your Dove, the enemy player, and potential R targets. Now, what is a sphere of influence? Now, let's start with an easier example. Let's throw up Jackie. Everybody knows Jackie, right? You got the player in the tutorial. This represents Jackie's Q sphere of influence. Now, remember, Jackie can Q in any direction. So, any direction Jackie faces that the Q extends out to in that cone, that's the sphere around her. It's very small because the Q itself is not a very long-range ability, but that's considered the danger zone. You could say the same for the R. It's about the same range. Now, Jackie also has a larger sphere of influence that is not nearly as deadly. This is her jump range. So this sphere of influence around Jackie never moves. It is always around Jackie. All these spheres are always around Jackie. If she jumps over here, that Q melee sphere is gonna go on with her. Now let's take a look at Emma. And this is where it gets complicated, and this is why this character is very difficult. So Emma has an auto attack sphere of influence, right? Because she has a long range ability. Because she is a long range character. She also has the Q, W, and E sphere of influence, which is almost the exact same range, so I'm going to represent it by the auto attack one. When you press Q with Emma, it creates the Dove. The Dove also has a sphere of influence around it that is the same size as the original sphere. So, and the Dove does not move until Emma presses Q again. So if Emma moves to the top right or top left, the Dove sphere of influence doesn't. So you have to pay attention to where the Dove is and Emma. Now let's say Emma presses W. The hat has an explosion sphere of influence. So now there's another one on top of all that you have to keep track of. And Emma can move freely between either of these two items, whether it's R-ing to either of them, just walking to another one. So now you have to pay attention to where all three of these things are and the enemy opponent, whether it's a Jackie or anything else. So, do you see where this all gets complicated? Now this video is already getting kind of long, so I would like to go over just a couple key points during the match where I think Emma power spikes, does well, and just shits on people. So the first one, we're talking as soon as you make your green item, your green weapon. Inside of Avenue, I like to make a Choco Pie or two, and some kind of mixture with honey, whether it's honey milk or honey water.
Start from the basics.
At this point, you should be level 3 immediately. You are strong enough to win a fight with just about anybody. I definitely recommend getting a kill early, because this helps you scale into the later game, because this gives you a lot of shuriken XP. When you go into Temple, you get another massive power spike really fast. Remember, this is not an auto attack build. The only time you really want to auto somebody is to get your shield. So, you make the charm with the Buddhist scripture. I always go the same route. I always check these specific containers. And as long as I get a Buddhist scripture, I'm fine.
I'll remember you.
The charm itself is strong enough to sustain me for a very long time. So right after Temple, you are insanely powerful. I don't think you lose anybody except Nadine at this point, because Nadine probably has her twin bow. That's the only reason. Actually, I recommend that you kill anybody you see, because they've looted the other areas that have your components. Your main power spikes are when you finish your weapon and your chest piece. If you have those two items, you're essentially set for the rest of the match. Everything else is bonus. Bonus dosh. So if you're at all interested in Emma, this is the right way to play her. Well, she's extremely complicated, and I think someone just needed to explain to people how to actually play her. So give it a shot. Let me know in the comments how it went. If any questions, leave a comment. Thanks for watching.
A legend is born. You've achieved victory.
A magician never reveals her secrets.
This is not correct. Oh, coffee. Put that at the end. Fuck it. I don't give a shit.